Well, hello and welcome to our new podcast series. My name is Amanda Livingston, and I'm the president of the Salem-Roanoke County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm so excited to bring to you today Jeannie and Mike Keene. You know, at the Chamber, we have over 400 companies represented. So I know there's a lot of curiosity out there about buying and selling businesses. So welcome. Thank you for being here on our new podcast.
Thank you, Amanda. We're so excited to be here on day one for the inaugural podcast.
Well, thank you. Mike, do you want to just take a minute and tell us a little bit?
Sure. So we are a full-blown business brokerage firm. We help with the lower middle market, and we do some Main Street deals as well. We work with buyers and sellers, mostly representing the sellers. We have done over 100 transactions over the last 10 years in the range of about $41 million. So we enjoy what we do. We love it. And, I was a fraud investigator with law enforcement before I decided what I wanted to do when I grew up, and here we are.
I'll brag on Mike a little bit. We call him the closer, the negotiator. I think his experience in law enforcement really helps in the business that we're in now. His ability to be able to negotiate on behalf of our clients is really incredible. Yeah. And I have a background in therapy that also comes in handy when we're talking about the emotional business of buying and selling.
Yes, I was going to say there has to be a lot of emotion when you think about someone who's, started a company from scratch and they're ready to sell. It might be hard for a lot of people to, pass on their business and, exit stage left. Do you deal with a lot of different emotions when it comes to selling a business?
That's a very good point. And we do. And, on the front end, when we're talking with our sellers to better understand the reasons why they want to sell, kind of their thought process, their timeline, we really want to tap into that emotion. Like, how do you feel about selling your business? Because we, for example, just closed on a $4.9 million steel manufacturing business that the owner had owned for how long?
Roughly about 30 years.
30 years. So his employees, many of them had been with him from the beginning. And for him, and that's something we want to evaluate, as the representatives for these business owners. What's the most important thing to you as we search for a buyer? Who's the perfect buyer for this business? And for him, it was someone who was going to take care of his employees who had been with him through all the ups and downs of buying and owning and running a business. So yeah, it can absolutely be emotional. We try to work with business owners to think about, envision what does that next step look like for you? Is it playing golf? Is it fishing? Is it spending more time with the grandkids? Because if we can help them kind of begin to visualize that next phase in their life, it makes releasing the business a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I would think that, of course, everyone wants the new owner to be successful, but I think the seller really does because they want to get paid, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times, I'm guessing these people selling don't get paid out completely at the closing, or do they? How does that work?
So in most cases, they can get fully paid out depending on the size of the transaction. If it's a private equity group coming in to purchase, then they may want to have $100,000 or whatever the number may be sitting in escrows to make sure that all the reps and warranties are covered, or to maybe make sure that the seller provided good financials and they are true and accurate, that they're going to make the amount of money that we're saying that they're making.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes when deals are structured, there may be some seller financing that is involved in the deal. And we talk to our sellers about their openness to providing some seller financing might make their business even a little more appealing to a buyer.
And sometimes even in that situation, if it is a lender involved, i.e. the SBA, there may be some caveats that the SBA may come back and say, hey, we can do this deal with 10% equity from the buyer, but we're also going to need 10% equity from the seller, which means a 10% seller note. So every situation's a little bit different, but for the most part, Most sellers do get most of their money at closing, and that's one of the things that we try to sit back and work with the sellers on to assure that they do get paid out.
Sure.
So
So just giving you a hypothetical, like I've been in business for 20 years and I'm getting ready in the next 10 years to sell and start my retirement, move to Florida. What would you say I need to focus on in preparation for that sale?
Well, I would say there's 3 things to consider. And as you're thinking about your exit, allow a couple of years, because a lender is going to do a 3-year look back at your financials. So the first thing is to get your financials in order. And they're really going to tell the story of the business. I think when it boils down to it, you can do a lot of other things, but at the end of the day, the financials are going to drive the lending. And because we have more savvy buyers these days, they may be evaluating multiple businesses at once. So you want your business to be the one to rise to the top. And the most effective way to be able to do that is to have good financials. And for example, we are working with a business who ran their pool, the construction of their pool, through their tax returns, because many times as business owners, we're trained to reduce the tax liability on our tax returns. But then when a lender's trying to fund the loan, those pieces don't match up. They have to be sure that the debt service is going to be there for a buyer. And if you've reduced tax liability on your tax returns, then it becomes hard to justify the amount of the loan. So we need to educate business owners not to do that for the 2 or 3 years leading up to the time of the
Like
sale.
show as much profit as
Don't
possible.
go buy the $80,000 truck at the end of the year, even if your accountant is recommending you do that. So get your books and records in order. The second thing is work yourself out of the business. You don't want to be the star of the show. You want to have the people in place, the right people in the right seats on the bus, and then empower them to do the work. So you want to back yourself out of the business. The less dependent the business is on you, the more valuable your business becomes to a buyer. And then the third thing would be to ensure you have systems and processes in place. And these days, that's far easier with AI to use those tools to help you create the policies, to create the procedures and the systems. And, there's things that we used to do, like our creation of our confidential information memorandum and some things that we do that we're able to use AI in such a way that things that took me days to complete now take me less than an hour to complete. So as a business owner, you can use those same tools to get your systems and processes actually down on paper, out of your head onto paper. Because if the business goes out the door when you go out the door at the end of the day, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So those 3 things I think are the most important things, and allowing 2 to 3 years to get them accomplished.
Sure. And so the bookkeeping is so important, and you're talking about just making sure you're showing profitability. Do you really need to hire an accountant, or is this something you can do on QuickBooks, or does it just depend on the business?
I mean, most people use QuickBooks these days, and as long as they've got good bookkeeping going in, and then maybe have a quarterly audit done by a CPA, it's usually okay. And the banks like to see that, because at the end of the day, when they're trying to do a loan, just like Jeannie said, if an accountant or whomever has told the seller, hey, run all your personal expenses through here. Well, as Jeannie mentioned earlier, I'm working with one now that we got to go back and get receipts now to show that a swimming pool or a roof. I mean, people do all kinds of things that they run through their business that really and truly, at the end of the day, it's saving them in taxes, but it's not helping them on the sale price. It's going to hurt that sale price, because the loan ratio has got to be there.
Sure.
And to piggyback on that, every dollar that you add to the bottom line, when Mike is looking at a multiple, when he's doing evaluation, the multiple for that number could be 3 or 5. So for every dollar you're adding back to the bottom line, you could be adding $3 to $5 back to the bottom line, back to the sales price.
I remember back in my franchise days, we looked at, typically it was like 1.2 profitability. So based on the gross. So were you saying like some businesses are like 3 and 4 times?
There's certain ideas out there. Businesses sell for X number multiple of the gross revenue coming in. Today's world, there's, as Jeannie said, the buyers are very savvy. They're not going to pay a multiple on most businesses of the revenue. It's going to be on the net profit.
So it's profit. So it's 3 times
Correct.
net profit versus
Or
revenue.
either that or the EBITDA number. And EBITDA, you have to do an adjustment to EBITDA in most cases, and the banks will do that as well. Especially husband and wife own a business. They're both taking a salary out of the business. When the business sells, they're both not going to be there, but maybe the new owner coming in, they're only going to replace one of those. So then you could add that one salary back to the bottom line, but you'd have to leave one out because they've got to make.
So in my scenario before where I was getting ready to sell my business in the next few years, do I need a broker to help me? Can I do it on my own? What's the advantage of having someone like you all handle the sale?
It's a very good question. I don't think a lot of business owners understand that there are people out there to assist them with the sale. And subsequently, what do we even do? So we do represent the seller. There are folks out there who do buyer representation, but we represent the seller through the course of the business sale. And, like I said earlier, every phase of the process from list to close. So creating that marketing package, listing the business for sale on all of the industry leading websites, and then we begin our buyer screening process. And we're going to screen buyers and only present sellers with buyers that we have determined would be a good fit to run that business, that they're ready, willing, and able to buy the business. We're not going to waste the time of a seller presenting you. And, think about it from this perspective. As a business owner, it's incredibly challenging for me to carve out time to post for a job opening in my business, a front desk, a cashier, whatever position you have open. It's very time consuming to post that job for sale, to interview candidates, to get that person hired and trained. So if you think about that from the perspective of a business owner trying to do that for themselves, how would you feel qualified to run an ad to try to find someone to buy your business? Once a buyer's identified, that's when the real work begins, the work that makes a difference, because the terms that go into a letter of intent and a contract, that's important. That's big business. And if you're being bought by a strategic buyer or a private equity group, they're going to come with a team of analysts, a team of attorneys, a team of folks that are going to maybe ask you for items and documents prematurely. And that's where Mike and our business brokerage firm help protect the seller. We're going to be sure that confidentiality of the sale is maintained. We're going to protect the privacy, and we are going to be sure that buyers and buyer attorneys are not prematurely asking for documents that they shouldn't have access to at that particular time. And I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that.
I'll give you a good example of a situation that I dealt with this past year where a seller decided to not work with a brokerage firm, put the business out there on his own. The business was on all the leading websites. He was getting inquiries daily on this thing. They had multiplied so much that he couldn't even keep up with calling the people back. He came to us and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about listing my business for sale. And oh, by the way, I've had it on the market for a year now, and here's a whole list of all these potential buyers you got." He had no idea how to even try to start filtering through those guys and vetting or at least screening them to the point to even find out if they were legit or not. And he got so frustrated that he didn't even know what the process would look like. So we had to sit down and have a conversation with him to help him understand that. Once we did, we were able to list the business. But I think a lot of sellers don't realize how much work goes on behind the scenes of just screening through some of these potential buyers.
And having done this for a decade, we can tell in about the first 60 seconds whether a buyer is a legitimate
What do you look
candidate,
for? What do you look for?
Or a tire kicker. Well, if they say, I've been looking to buy a business for 5 years,
Red flag.
chances are pretty good they're going to keep looking.
I'm a searcher, and I've been searching for a couple of years now, but I still haven't found the right
Looking
one.
for that perfect business.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Or if they're risk adverse, you may present them with some business. Well, what are your buying criteria? You present them with a business that meets every one of those criteria, and they're still, maybe they're in corporate America and they think they want to buy a business, but they just can't quite. They're a little too risk adverse to make the leap.
Yeah, so there's so much involved. There's like marketing, financials, contracts. Is there a division of duty between this husband-wife team? How do you divide and conquer, or you just both work the deals together?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, we have a team in our office that we rely on as well. That they make me look good on a daily basis, obviously, and of course Jeannie does as well. But everybody does their own thing. We have a CRM system that everything goes in. All the financials are there. They're secure. We don't have to email those across to Google and all that stuff to take a chance on somebody's information getting stolen. But, Jeannie handles the marketing side of it. I'm kind of the negotiator that works with the buyers and sellers to get them ready to go into an LOI. And then the rest of the team takes care of doing all the other stuff that we don't have time to do.
And lucky for us, we have two very different skill sets. Mike is way more analytical and I'm way more big picture, which I guess in the long run probably works out well for us. I can't imagine if we were both, very strong in one area. We'd have to pull in some other team members to overcompensate. But fortunately for us, we're good at different things. And we kind of respect that. We kind of stay in our own lane, but we also really love what we do. So whether we're on vacation, no matter where we are, we work a little bit every day. And in fact, I was just in Oaxaca, Mexico, and over breakfast, meeting some new people. And I met the owner of a holding company in Florida. She was able to introduce us to a med spa owner that she works with. And he's when you look at the tale of two business owners, he's doing things the right way. Mike completed evaluation. The numbers came in a little bit less, maybe $800,000 less than he wanted to sell the business for. So we were able to introduce him to a local certified exit planning advisor here in the Valley. They were able to identify 3 or 4 improvements that this business owner could make over the course of the next 8 to 12 months. He'll implement those things like having the business be less dependent on his wife, who was the physician within the business, taking away a couple service lines, adding some new service lines. So this very savvy business owner will spend the next 8 months accomplishing those tasks, come back to us for a reevaluation, and hopefully increase the sale price of his business. And that's really the way to do it. He's not driven by death, divorce, delusionment, or declining sales, the 4 Ds that we talk about in business brokerage. He's not in crisis. He's kind of getting a lay of the land. This is what my business would sell for today on the open market. And then that's informing him on what the next steps are. Maybe your sales are high and they're peaked and you're in a position to be able to exit today at the valuation and the multiple and the sell price that you want. Maybe you're not quite there yet. So that informs you on what your next steps as a business owner should do. And so many times we get caught as business owners working in the business and not working on the business. So we're doing these day-to-day mundane tasks, checking our emails, doing things that are not going to increase the value of the business, the enterprise value at the end of the day.
So people are getting really good feedback on how to approach selling their business and making changes to get the most out of it.
Yes.
So we live in an aging population. So how does that speak to the baby boomers selling businesses? What can you tell me about that?
We are. Most of our sellers we're seeing today are 65 plus. And there is hundreds of businesses out there right here in the Roanoke Valley that have owners in them that are meeting 70 plus in age, and they are now deciding it's time to sell my business. They have thought for years oh, my son's going to take this business over, or I have a family member that's going to come in and take the business over. And over the last 10 years, I've been told that thousands of times, and guess how many times I've seen it happen? None.
Really?
Your family doesn't want your business. They grew up around it. They grew up watching mom and dad work the business, and they don't want to do what you've done. They've got their own careers.
Right.
But, the silver tsunami wave is here. It's coming probably in the next 10 years. We're going to see even a bigger increase in it. And a lot of these businesses are worth millions of dollars that they don't realize how much they really could sell the business for.
And a crazy number is that 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day. Every day. And not a majority of them, many of them are business owners. So over the course of the next decade, we're going to see $10 trillion in asset transfer. This is the largest transfer of wealth that we're ever going to see.
So younger people are coming in and buying these businesses?
Yeah. So from a seller's perspective, what that means is you really need to have a good business when you're bringing it to market so it rises to the top.
Sure.
For a buyer, that means it's like a smorgasbord. Like you can go out and find a business in just about any industry. So, if you're evaluating 10 dry cleaners, you're going to choose the dry cleaner that has the best valuation.
Is there, you talk about dry cleaners. Is there a business out there that typically has really good net profit and is not a hard business, not a complex, maybe not a sexy business, but not a hard business to run?
Well, you hear a lot about boring businesses. A lot of people want to buy boring businesses, your laundromats. I would say maybe storage units.
Storage units and car washes. They seem to be the ones that people can sit at home on their computer, work a few hours a day. Everything is automated. The sad part about it is they're few and far between. They're hard to find.
Right.
Not everybody wants to sell them once they get into one. So, yeah, those are the two big ones, I think. We get a lot of calls, hey, I'm looking for a car wash, or I'm looking for storage units. You can look for storage units all day. As a broker, I get online and I look and see what's out there. They're hard to find. And most of those sell very quietly. They've already got buyers in place. It may be a tenant that's renting a storage unit. Hey, Joe's going to sell his storage units. I'm going to buy those. I see how easy it is.
Yeah, it just seems like you don't need that many people to run a storage unit or an automated car wash. So that takes one of the big issues away when you don't have to hire.
You don't need employees there for the most part. I mean, most of them have cameras on them. Most of them are automated with the payment plans. They have all these apps now where you can just put a code in and walk inside the storage unit. So everything's kind of runs itself, really.
Yeah. So you deal with the negotiating, and I'd love to hear from you if you have any tips. I guess both parties need to leave a little, I don't know, you want everybody to be happy, but I guess in a real negotiation, everyone leaves a little bit like they left something on the table.
So I tell every buyer that comes to the table, we have given you our first offer of what the market price is. Give us something that we can take back to the seller and try to negotiate so both sides come and meet in the middle and both sides leave happy. In 99% of the cases when a deal is cut, both sides do leave happy. Every now and again, you'll have a seller say, man, I wished I hadn't have done that. I wished I'd have stuck to my guns and got the full price. There may be a reason why that didn't happen, and one of those reasons could be the bank is saying, hey, because of the debt service ratio that's on this loan, we can only get to this price tag on it. So if the seller wants to get another $150,000 or another $1 million for that business, he's going to have to do a seller note on that. But oh, by the way, if he does a seller note and this SBA loan has to be paid off in full before he can get the first penny of his money. So you're better off to negotiate that price tag to where both sides can feel comfortable. And then that way we don't have that to worry about. I mean, you got to think about if you're 75 years old, you're selling your business for $5 million. Do you really want to do a seller note on $1 million? Every seller tells me, Mike, what if I don't live long enough to see that $1 million? That's the thought process. And, what I try to do is to say, hey, Let's get the price tag where it is reasonable within the market lines of everything we see going on out here. You'll be happy at the end of the day. You won't have to worry about a seller note. And in most cases, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of businesses for sale in this area. And why would somebody want to buy a business in the Roanoke Valley?
Oh, Roanoke is amazing. You know, we grew up in far southwest Virginia in the coal fields of the state, and we spent a few years just inside the Beltway of DC. And Roanoke is just a nice, happy medium. We don't have rush hour, but we have plenty of things to do. We have culture, we have symphony and a children's theater, we have an art museum, and we have the beautiful outdoors. And the thing about Roanoke is that there's so many amazing businesses quietly behind the scenes, just like Steel Dynamics, who was just here speaking with you. They're doing amazing businesses that many Roanokeers have no idea.
It's true.
No idea.
Yeah.
They're supporting the economy. They're providing hundreds of jobs to the area, and they're just quietly doing their thing. Amazing businesses in this area.
I agree with that. So when you're sealing the deal and celebrating, what restaurant do you go to around town?
We love Frankie's in Salem. It's right. I mean,
For
we're
us,
with
it's walking distance.
it's walking distance to the office.
Which is,
so
yes, yeah. And
You like
we spend a lot, doing
pineapple-
business over those pineapple
martinis.
for
Wonderful.
sure.
Well, thank you guys so much. I
Yeah,
really
thank
appreciate the insight.
Thank you.
thanks for having us.
Thank you all for being with us today. We're so excited about our new podcast. Stay tuned for another business leader in next month's episode. Thanks for joining. And this was brought to you by the Salem-Roanoke County Chamber of Commerce and Red Velocity. Thank you.